going to make the same exact mistakes he made last year with the Clippers? I think he might. About an hour from now, why Juju Smith-Schuster is making me feel like an old man. And I unveil my NBA player pyramid headed into the season. Before we get to any of that, we have to get to the games last night. Before we get to that, we have to get to my dear friend Joy Taylor. Joy Taylor, who was my longest colleague at Fox Sports. We were hired, I think, the same week. It's Joy. It's great to be working with you once again. The last time the NBA was in session, your beloved Miami Heat culture were losing a title to, you know, my guy, LeBron. So it was good, but it was bad. It was tough. It was a good season. What did you think of the games last night?
That's how you want to start the show off, Nick.
Yeah.
You know, bringing up old stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I wasn't surprised by the Nets game at all because I think that they're going to be much better than people think that they are. And I have some thoughts, actually, about ring ceremony night, about playing on ring ceremony night. I think it's a little bit like too much hype to then refocus. You're all emotional. So I might have a little nugget for you on that later. But overall, a great night for the NBA.
Okay, well, that's a great place to start, and we're going to get to the Nets in probably about 10 minutes-ish, but I want to start with ring ceremony because what happened right after the ring ceremony is the Lakers lost the game. First quarter, down 22 points. They clawed back to tie it a number of times. They never got over the hump. They seem to be treating it somewhat like a preseason game. LeBron tweaks his ankle barely. The guy hasn't had a sprained ankle in 18 years. I don't think he suffered one last night. They take him out of the game in the fourth quarter, never put him back in. He plays less than 30 minutes. They played a dozen different people trying out different rotations, and the Clippers get an oddly important win for them, only important because they had that 22-point lead. You can't suffer the absolute meltdown of meltdowns they suffered against the Nuggets and then start the next season 90 days later, or for the Clippers, I guess 101 days later, by blowing a 20-point first quarter lead. So an oddly important game for the Clippers. Anyone concerned about the Lakers, I think they're out of their mind. This is going to be the best team in basketball by a wide margin. But I do think there is a little bit of sentiment of, oh, look, Clippers. Could this be the Clippers team so many people expected to see last year? A Clippers team that when your old buddy Nick Wright was saying all year long they won't even make the conference finals was called a hater and an idiot and a hot taker. Can't actually believe that. And I got to tell you, I watched this game very closely, and I wasn't that high on the Clippers going into the game. I think they won't make the conference finals again. I don't think they're one of the two best teams in the West. I'm not sure whether they're one of the three best teams in the West. I watched this game last night. I feel a little bit worse about them. Obviously, Paul George was great. Kawhi had an atypically inefficient night, but you basically know what you're going to get from Kawhi on the nights he plays, and you know what you're going to get from Paul George throughout the regular season. In the postseason, it's a little more dicey. But you looked at the rest of that rotation, and I know Marcus Morris wasn't there. Well, he was there. He was actually videotaping his brother getting a ring with the Lakers, but he wasn't playing. But, so you don't have Marcus Morris? So Nick Batum is in your starting lineup? Nick Batum is going to be in your rotation? Even if he's not going to be in your starting lineup, when Morris comes back, Nick Batum, who the Charlotte Hornets, not exactly a bastion of winning basketball, they were like, you know what? We'd rather pay Gordon Hayward $120 million to play for us and replace Nick Batum, and Nick Batum $27 million to play for anybody else. The Hornets paid him to go away. The Clippers start him on opening night, and then I looked at the other guys getting minutes. I know that they paid Luke Kennard like he's a highly valuable NBA player, but at no point in his career have I ever thought that about him. Maybe one day he'll be. I don't think that day will be this year. Patrick Patterson is heavily involved. And then it's like, wait, it's the same problems they had last year. The backcourt has a great offensive player in Lou Williams, who is historically, look it up, one of the worst and most inconsistent playoff performers. Actually, he's pretty consistently bad in the playoffs we've had in recent NBA history. And then a one-way defensive player in Patrick Beverley. And it's like, oh, Montrezl Harrell's gone. Folks, Montrezl Harrell was important for them last year, but we replaced him with Serge Ibaka. Congrats. You You replaced the third most important player on your team with a guy who was the fourth most important player on a team that couldn't get out of the second round in the East last year. I just don't see it. And I didn't see it last year with the Clippers. And listen, nobody likes a guy who's, says, I told you so, but I told you so, America. And I don't see it this year. The Lakers will be fine. I think the Lakers will lose on Christmas, by the way. I think they're going to start 0-2. And actually, that for us gamblers out there that didn't want to bet the Lakers before the year because the odds were just too low, maybe the odds get a little bit better. But there is nothing I saw last night from the Clippers that makes me think they are going to be markedly better than they were last year. And no matter what folks try to tell you, what the Clippers were last year was a second-tier team. They weren't good enough to beat the Nuggets, who weren't good enough to even put a slight scare into the Lakers. So, listen, congrats to the Clippers' first win in 106 days since they went up 3-1 on the Nuggets in the second round. First win against the Lakers in 362 days. I would imagine last night's got to be a top 10 moment in Clippers history. It's like acquiring Chris Paul, the Chris Paul buzzer beater against the Spurs, beating the Lakers on Christmas last year, beating the Lakers on opening day. Like, these are the best moments in the history of the franchise. Drafting Danny Manning. So congrats to him for it, but I don't think they're going to be much better. Then there was the early game. And like I said, we'll talk about the Nets shortly. But I want to talk about the team on the other side, which was the Warriors. And Steph Curry, who let me back up a bit. I've been working on a project in my spare time during quarantine, the 50 best players of the last 50 years of the NBA. So essentially Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to right now, who are the 50 best guys. So we're removing the Russells and the Wilts, Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, those guys. I've got Steph Curry 13th as the 13th greatest player of essentially the modern era. And I feel good about that. I've got Kevin Durant 12, just those two guys neck and neck, right behind Dr. J and Moses Malone. Ahead of Dirk, ahead of Isaiah Thomas, ahead of Kevin Garnett, ahead of, well, basically everyone except for the 10 greatest players ever. But here is what I am concerned about for Steph and for the Warriors. I think this year is going to expose, not expose Steph as a player, but expose a part of Steph Curry's game that a lot of us, even those of us who say greatest shooter ever, one of the greatest teammates ever, a great champion, all these things, have always quietly suspected, but have never been able to see, which is, all right, we know Steph is the perfect piece on a great team. But can he carry a bad team? Not to a championship, not to 55 wins. How about to the playoffs? If not to the playoffs, to a 500 record. Because there's a really weird, there's like in the NBA these days, there's people that are fans of teams, but almost more than that, there's people that are fans of players. And there is this, the Steph Hive, Ross Harden, Chris Paul once upon a time had a pretty fervent fan base. And all the point guard fans kind of argue amongst each other. And when Russ averaged his triple-double, and folks thought he shouldn't have won that MVP, and when Harden averaged 35 a game and then 33 a game, what Steph fans would say is, man, let Steph Curry have that usage rate. Let Steph Curry get to run that ISO ball, that style of offense. He would show the world what he could do in that system. Instead, he's running a team system, team-friendly system, the beautiful basketball that Steve Kerr learned from Greg Popovich, all of it. And that seemed like a legitimate argument. The counterpoint is this. Steph has never needed to do that, what Russ had to do the year KD left or the year KD was injured, what Harden had to do his first year in Houston and the year before they got Chris Paul in Houston, which is be an offense unto himself. Say, listen, can't win a title, but we're going to get to 45 wins plus. We're going to get to the playoffs, and it's going to be all through me. Steph's never had to do that. And what I fear we're going to find out this year is that's very good because he can't. And that's not a massive indictment, but when we're talking about the 20 greatest players in the history of the game, it's a little indictment. It's got to matter somewhat. Who are the best point guards of the last 20 years? Basically post-Jason Kidd, so the last 15 years. Chris Paul, Harden, Russ, Steph. I think everyone on the all-time player pyramid has Steph above all those guys. He's got 3 championships. Those 3 guys combined have 0. He's got 2 MVPs. Those 3 guys combined have 2. He is without question the best of those 4.